I'd walk out because I can't run anymore.
The Blues should look at this as a weakness, I think.
Here come the Blues. Listen to this. How good.
Wow.
The crowd to a man is standing to welcome home Alfie Langer, former Australian captain, playing his 31st Origin, 22 Test matches, 200.
Look, the NRL has took us out of the competition for the year 2000.
Would you please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, just for your entertainment, match 22.
If you're part of the Honest and Open Conversations community, thank you. And if you're not yet, now's the time to join us, because this movement only gets stronger with every voice that stands with it. Now, on to today's podcast. Rugby league didn't become the greatest game on earth by accident. It was built by ordinary Australians who loved the game too much to ever let it die. Working class communities, local clubs, family, and supporters who cared so deeply about the game. 80,000 of them once marched through the streets of Sydney to defend a football club. It produced players who could change a game in a single moment. Players who didn't wait for instructions. Players who saw the opportunity and took it. And it created one of the greatest rivalries in world sport. State against state, mate against mate. Somewhere along the way, the people running the game started forgetting who rugby league actually belongs to. This podcast, I want to talk about the game that helped make me the man I am. Why rugby league mattered. What made the golden era special. And why the culture that built the game is still worth defending. From my earliest memories, rugby league was a constant part of my life. One of my earliest memories is simple. A young kid, half asleep, being woken up by his dad in the middle of the night. Get up, the Ashes are on. Australia versus Great Britain. A quiet house, a flickering television, and men playing a game where getting hit wasn't the problem. Getting back up was the expectation. At the time, I didn't realise that game was already teaching me something important, because rugby league didn't care how I felt, it cared how I performed. After returning to the Highlands as a young kid after living in northern New South Wales, my first sporting endeavour was actually soccer. My first soccer coach would later become my Year 6 teacher, the same teacher I mentioned in my introductory podcast. But I'll be honest with you, as a soccer player, the game bored the absolute shit out of me. And to be completely honest, it still does. If you're looking for a torture technique, you could probably use soccer. 90 minutes of running around and the game might still finish in a draw. Sometimes even 0-0. Not to mention the prima donnas throwing themselves on the ground, pretending they've been shot. And in my opinion, it's one of the most corrupt major sports in the world. So that probably tells you everything you need to know about how long my soccer career lasted. Then I discovered rugby league, a game where people actually get hit and keep playing. There was one moment from my short soccer career that stayed with me. I got hit in the head with the ball, or the face maybe, unsure. I honestly don't remember it clearly, but someone came over to check if I was all right. Later I found out it was Jimmy Barnes. Now if you grew up in Australia, you know exactly who Jimmy Barnes is. Cold Chisel, Working Class Man, Kaysan. Songs that became part of Australian culture. And when I look back on my life, Jimmy Barnes' music pops up in a lot of my best memories. Sitting around fires with mates, old pubs with jukeboxes, Cold Chisel playing in the background. And those songs represent something very Australian. Working class pride, resilience, standing on your own 2 feet. And those values set right at the heart of rugby league culture. To understand rugby league, you have to understand where it came from. Over 100 years ago, rugby league split from rugby union. And the reason was simple, class. Rugby union was dominated by wealthy university elites. So rugby league was born. A faster game, simpler rules, open to anyone. And that working class identity became part of rugby league culture. A tough game played by tough people, supported by tough communities. Playing rugby league taught me something important, teamwork. Responsibility, discipline and accountability. Because when you're on a rugby league, if you don't do your job, 12 other blokes suffer for it. There was a period in rugby league history when the game truly believed in itself, when it wasn't apologising, when it wasn't trying to please everyone, when it proudly celebrated what the sport actually was, a tough, physical, working class game. And the moment that captured that spirit better than anything else was simply the best campaign. But before that campaign, there was another promotion that lit the spark. The campaign called What You Get Is What You See. These promotions deserve to be relived, and hopefully I don't get a copyright flag for showing them. The first clip is the initial promotion that introduced Tina Turner to rugby league. The campaign was called What You Get Is What You See. The footage is thanks to Jamal59, and the link is in the description. Roll the clip.
Cup. The big games never look so good.
Now just think about that for a moment. The clip is rated G. It shows everything that makes rugby league special. The power, the physicality, the confidence. Yet today, there are probably not many companies in Australia that would release something like that. And that alone tells you something about how much the country has declined. Now comes the promo that changed everything for the greatest game on earth. Simply the best. Originally performed with Tina Turner alone in 1990. Thanks to the team at Sage Worldwide. The link is in the description. Roll the clip. 1993, Jimmy Barnes joined Tina Turner in the campaign. Once again, thanks to the team at Sage Worldwide. Roll the clip.
Picked me up like a rag doll, threw me on the ground.
Next game,
Petrified. I said, welcome to first grade, son.
You've got to choose what you want to do and go for it. I think rugby league's changed enormously in the past few years.
Give me your best shot, you know. Just your best shot.
I hate losing. I just want to be a little up
to make Tina Turner. Well, everyone loves a winner, eh? I want to be the best.
You're the best!
From 1989 to 1995, Tina Turner was the face of rugby. And when Australians heard that song, or part of that song, they thought about the game. But those campaigns didn't happen by accident. They happened because the people running the game at the time actually understood rugby league. John Quayle, Canard, those blokes believed in the game. They understood the fans, they understood the culture, and they were willing to back rugby league publicly. Those blokes put everything on the line because bringing in a global superstar like Tina Turner to promote a tough working class sport in Australia was a massive gamble. But they believed in the game, and that belief paid off. In my opinion, a fair comparison of what Arthurson and Quayle did with Simply the Best would be the equivalent of what Peter V'landys could have done during COVID. You constantly hear reporters talking about how courageous it was that V'landys restarted the competition early. But if we're being honest, the truly courageous decision would have been never stopping the game at all, not shutting down rugby league for a virus that turned out to be no more lethal than a bad flu for the overwhelming majority of people. Instead, the game was stopped, then later restarted. And the restart was presented as some kind of heroic act. But compared to what Arthurson and Quayle did, that wasn't bold leadership. That was damage control. Politics between powerful people in the game had already torn rugby league apart once. The Super League war, greed, broadcast money, media companies fighting for control of the sport. Clubs were split, players were split, families were split. And the game many of us loved became a corporate battlefield. That war left scars on rugby league that are still visible today. And the lessons should have been simple. Leave politics out of the game. But unfortunately, that lesson was not always learned. But every now and then, the fans remind administrators who rugby league actually belongs to. And the greatest example of that was the South Sydney Rabbitohs. When South Sydney were kicked out of the competition, the Suits believed they could erase a foundation club. A club with over a century of history. A club supported by generations of working class Australians. They thought the fans would accept it. They were wrong. They were deadly wrong. In the year 2000, around 80,000 rugby league supporters marched through Sydney. Not just Rabbitohs fans, supporters from clubs across the entire competition, because people understood something bigger was at stake. If the Suits could erase South Sydney,
took us out of the competition for the year 2000.
For 31 years and I love it and I hate murder.
I feel like I could die now. That's how I feel.
Rugby league's nothing. South Sydney is what it's all about.
We are the Army! The Rabbitoh Army!
South Sydney is a community club and it meant so much to us. It was kind of the holy grail as far as, sport was concerned, as far as we were concerned. Well, if we're going to fight, let's fight good, and we fought good.
Days before its exclusion from the NRL competition, South's staged a Reclaim the Game rally outside the town hall. And I saw a lineup of very, very famous people.
When people are right, people don't give in. And we weren't going to give in this. This was too important to us to give in.
The fight's not over till you people walk away. And I promise you, till you people walk away, I won't. I'll stay and fight.
Stunning court victory paves the way for South Sydney to make a comeback. There were red and green tears flowing at Redfern again today, but for the first time in a long while, they were tears of joy. After more setbacks than they care to remember, the South Sydney Rabbitohs finally had a win in court. Now, the NRL is inviting them for talks on returning to the competition.
George Piggins declaring it was time to put an end to the bad blood and return the battles to the football field.
I just thought that we were right and we were wrongly done by, and we were going to fight till we got justice, and we got justice here today.
Overflow all through a very long day.
Rugby league started with South and it will end with South.
they won't.
They're bringing this game back to the people.
We're underway. Pointing at his cheekbone, I think. Something's happened with Sam Burgess.
It's a cheekbone, Rabs.
7 metres out from the line. Played back for Keary and he goes away. They've got an extra man. Alex Johnston.
That proves something about rugby league. The game might be run by administrators, but it belongs to the people who love it. Rugby league was built by the fans, not the suits. And the moment the suits think the game belongs to them, they start destroying it. When I fell in love with rugby league, there was one player who stood above everyone else for me. Alfie Langer. Now, Alfie didn't look like the biggest bloke on the field. In fact, compared to some of the forwards running around, he looked tiny. But the moment the ball was in his hand, everything changed. Alfie could see things other players couldn't. He could feel the momentum of a game shifting. He could see a gap before it even opened. And when the moment came, he didn't hesitate. He backed himself and his team. Roll the footage.
He brings the crowd to their feet.
And a great option here. Well read by Alfie Langer. Saw that they had numbers. The two centres outside and plenty of speed there. A bad miss from Mark Soden. Steve Renoff able to push him off. Beat another player, and that committed Greg Barwick to that tackle. And Alfie Langer backing up once again on the inside. Tried to improve the position, but planted the ball adjacent to the uprights. And here we see Alfie Langer knows that he's got numbers. Puts Chris Johns into the hole. Steve Renoff on the outside. That was the missed tackle there, the crucial one. Once again, Alfie Langer inside, try next to the post. Terry Madison, quite an easy kick by his standard.
She's shot at New South Wales, and it's a Queensland Ranger. Langer with a chance, Langer over. Oh, Sterling missed him, and Langer was over. That was ever so easy. Kilroy fires one out to Langer. Langer with a little chase too. Can he get the bounce? He toes it again, and toes it again. It's still in play. Still in play. Well, he tried it once before and didn't do it, and they let him do it, New South Wales.
Now to the right for Langer. This is where he created the problems. The kick is perfect. Sailor's over. Sailor's in the corner. Starts it down the blind. Terry Hill gets his first touch of the football. They're on the 30-metre line. Rodney Howe got the ball too slow. He likes it quicker than that when he's on the run. Langer's on for Rugby.
Well, that's 4 tackles.
2001, it's game 3. The series is tied. Where do you go? Who do you pick? Alfie Langer comes into the picture.
Yeah, from England. He was playing at Warrington. After the game 2, we were beaten convincingly. We came back and we were playing at ANZ Stadium, and Wayne was the coach, and he's thinking we need a halfback. I happened to be captain of the team, only because Alfred retired. Kevy wasn't there. Gordy was injured.
Crowd to a man is standing to welcome home Alfie Langer, former Australian captain, playing his 31st Origin, 22 Test matches, 240 Premiership games, and 4 times a Grand Final victor. Alfie is back in town.
He came back and to come from the Super League and play the way he did, it was amazing.
Langer, danger, danger. Langer's over. Is he? Yes. Langer gets a try. Capping a magnificent game.
That right there was rugby league instinct. Not a system, not a structure, just a footballer seeing the moment, taking it. Alfie wasn't the only player like that, because during that era, the game was producing players like that across the entire competition. When you look back at the late 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, one thing stands out: the depth of elite footballers across every position. Halves who could control a game, hookers could see opportunities around the ruck, ball-playing locks, the centres who could break a game open, fullbacks who could attack from anywhere on the park. Every club seemed to have players who could change the game in a single moment. Today, the athletes are incredible. They're faster, stronger, fitter. There's no question about that. But sometimes when you watch the modern game, you can't help noticing something. The instinct, the footballer brain, isn't as common as it once was. A lot of the game today is built around systems and structures, shapes, set play, pre-planned movements. And when everything becomes scripted, players stop trusting their instincts. They stop playing what's in front of them. And that's something a lot of older players have talked about. The athletes today might be better trained, but the earlier generations often had a deeper feel for the game itself. Let's look at something that rarely gets discussed when people talk about the modern game. The actual engagement numbers. Because if a sport is truly growing, then engagement should be growing faster than the population. That's how you know a sport is expanding. Australia's population has grown dramatically since the early 1990s. Millions of new potential fans. So if the game is being run well, you would expect the percentage of Australians engaged with rugby league to be increasing, not declining. Historically, about 7.5 out of every 100 Australians were strongly engaged with rugby league. Today that number sits closer to 7. That might sound like a small change, but across a country of millions of people, that represents a significant drop in engagement. And that leads to a pretty uncomfortable question. If the population is growing, but engagement with the game isn't growing at the same pace, then something inside the sport isn't working the way it used to. And whether administrators want to admit it or not, that responsibility ultimately sits with the leadership of the game. Now, before anyone says this is just a rugby league issue, there is an argument that something similar may be happening across multiple sports. The real question for any sport isn't just raw numbers. It's how many people care deeply enough to stay engaged. And if population keeps growing, but the cultural connection to sport isn't growing at the same pace, then administrators in every coach should probably start asking serious questions. Because sport in this country was built on community identity, local pride, tribal rivalries. And when those connections weaken, fans slowly drift away. Rugby league isn't the only sport facing that challenge. If you listen to commentary coming out of the United States, you'll hear similar concerns about major leagues like the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball, where some fans feel the leagues are being ran more for corporate interest and political messaging than for the people who actually love and support the sport. And rugby union provides another warning. Many people will know about how administrators in rugby union spent years fighting each other instead of growing the game. Internal politics, power struggles, administrators disconnected from fans. And the result? A global sport that almost bankrupted itself. Which brings us back to the most important rule in sport. Sport belongs to the fans, not the administrators, not the broadcasters, and not the sponsors. Because the moment a sport stops respecting the people who actually love it, the connection starts to weaken, slowly, quietly, but inevitably. Now, none of this means rugby league today isn't still capable of producing great moments. The athletes are incredible. They're faster, stronger, better conditioned than any generation before them. But if I'm being honest, as a lifelong supporter, the modern product too often doesn't feel worth the time. These days, I barely watch games outside of my beloved Brisbane Broncos. And that's not something I ever expected to say. When you turn the television on and see bunker decisions that make no sense, referee interpretations that change from week to week, and leadership that refuses to seriously address the problems, fans slowly begin to switch off. And time is the most valuable thing a supporter gives the game. Once fans stop giving their time, everything else starts to follow. Ratings, engagement, relevance. Rugby league was not built in corporate boardrooms. It was built in working class communities. Local clubs, pubs, and families. And when those supporters begin drifting away, no marketing campaign in the world will bring them back. Let me put this as clearly as I can. Rugby league isn't declining because fans suddenly stopped loving the game. It's declining because the people running it have forgotten who the game is actually for. When engagement per person drops in a country where the population keeps growing, that's not progress. That's a warning sign. And if the suits running rugby league don't start listening to the supporters who built the game, then the declines we're seeing now will only accelerate, because fans don't abandon the sport overnight. They drift away slowly. One game they don't watch, one season they care a little less, until eventually they're gone. And once a supporter stops caring about rugby league, it's incredibly hard to bring them back. We learnt that during Super League. Another major issue many supporters have noticed is the way political messaging is increasingly being dragged into the sport. Sport works best when it brings people together. Different beliefs, different backgrounds, different communities. But when political campaigns enter the game, they often create division instead of unity. A perfect example happened in 2022 with the Manly Pride jersey controversy. Manly were playing strong football that season. They looked like a team capable of going deep into the finals. Then the Pride jersey issue erupted. Several players refused to participate because of their Christian beliefs. The club was suddenly divided. The media cycle exploded and the season collapsed. Now, people can debate the politics of that issue all they want. But from a football perspective, the result was obvious. The team was torn apart. That's exactly why many fans believe politics simply does not belong inside professional sport. Because once those agendas enter the game, they stop uniting supporters and start dividing them. There's another issue the leadership of the game should think very carefully about, and that's perception. Modern rugby league exists in a world where betting markets are tied to almost every match. Millions of dollars move through those markets every week. So when controversial decisions happen, particularly bunker decisions, fans start asking questions. Again, I'm not claiming the game is rigged, but perception matters. Because if supporters begin believing the integrity of the competition is in doubt, the damage to the sport can happen very quickly. Fans stop betting, fans stop watching, fans stop caring. And that should worry every stakeholder in the sport: administrators, broadcasters, and betting agencies themselves. Because rugby league without trust is not rugby league at all. Then there's the way the game is presented in the media. For decades, the voice of rugby league was Ray Rabs Warren. For many fans, he was rugby league. The excitement, the emotion, the understanding of the game. When voices like that disappear, the game loses part of its identity. And when commentary starts drifting away from the culture of the sport itself, fans notice. Because rugby league supporters aren't stupid. They know when the game they love is being presented by people who truly understand it and when it isn't. And there's actually a perfect example of that. The attempt to remake one of the greatest promotions the game has ever produced, the Simply the Best promo. Roll the modern remakes.
Better than all the rest, better than anyone.
Same song, same concept, but the feeling wasn't the same because the original campaign wasn't just advertising. It captured the culture of the game and the confidence the sport once had in itself. And that's the rugby league I fell in love with. A game built on toughness, loyalty, and communities that cared deeply about it. Now, I've spent a fair bit of time in this episode pointing out the problems in the modern game. And I didn't do that because I hate rugby league. I did it because I love this game. But I'll tell you something honestly. Watching what the leadership of the sport has done to it in the recent years has been incredibly frustrating. Because rugby league is one of the greatest sports ever created. It was built by working class communities, by people who loved the game enough to defend it when powerful interests tried to tear it apart. And yet today, so many of the problems in rugby league aren't coming from the fans. They're coming from the people running the game. The lack of courage in the leadership of this sport is honestly breathtaking. Because the moment controversy appears, the instinct isn't to defend the culture of rugby league. The instinct is to shut people up. Players are told what they can say. Officials are told what they can say. Anyone connected to the game is expected to stay quiet. But here's the problem with that approach. Rugby league was never built on silence. It was built on character. If you ask the leadership of the NRL and the Commission whether they believe in principles like free speech, fairness, and the rule of law, I'm sure they would say yes. But if you believe in those principles, then you actually have to live by them. You can't claim to believe in fairness while silencing people connected to the game. And you can't claim to believe in justice while punishing players based on accusations before courts have reached conclusions. That doesn't build trust. It destroys it. But despite all that, I still believe rugby league has a future. And the reason I believe that is because the real spirit of the game still exists. It exists in people who actually understand rugby league. The coaches, the players, the people who carry the culture of the sport forward. Blokes like Ricky Stewart, Craig Bellamy, Michael Maguire, the Johns brothers, Alfie Langer, Wayne Bennett, and yes, even Phil Gould. Because whether you agree with Gus or not, you can never question that he understands rugby league. And love him or hate him, you never doubt that he cares about the game. These men carry the culture of rugby league. And they stand on the shoulders of the giants who built the game. Redonigus, Churchill, Beatson, Fulton, Raper, Proven and Summons. That's the rugby league tradition. And it's bigger than any administration. Bigger than any television deal. And bigger than any commission. Which means the future of rugby league doesn't depend on the suits running the game today. It depends on whether the culture of the game survives them. But if you want proof rugby league still has something special, look no further than the state of origin. When origin kicks off, the country stops. Workplaces stop. Pubs fill up. Families gather around the television. Because Origin captures everything rugby league does best. Show up for your mates. Take the hit. Get back up. Do your job. And never let the bloke next to you down. Because rugby league doesn't care about excuses. It cares about effort. It cares about loyalty. And it cares about performance. And when I think about where it all started, I keep coming back to the same memory. A young kid, half asleep, being woken up by his dad in the middle of the night. Get up, the ashes are on. A quiet house, a flickering television. Australia versus men playing a game where getting hit wasn't the problem. Getting back up was the expectation. That was rugby league. And in a lot of ways, it still is. And that's the rugby league I fell in love with. A game built on toughness, loyalty, and communities that care deeply about it. If the people running the game today think supporters will sit quietly while the culture of rugby league is slowly dismantled, they've badly misunderstood the people who built this sport. Because rugby league fans are some of the most loyal supporters in the world. But loyalty cuts both ways. And if the leadership of the game keeps ignoring the supporters who carried this sport for generations, then one day they might look around and realise those supporters have simply walked away. And if that day ever comes, no television deal, no marketing campaign, and no boardroom strategy will be able to save it. Because rugby league was never built by the suits. It was built by the people who love the game. This is honest and open conversations. Unfiltered, unrestricted, unapologetic. The fight for truth isn't over. It's just getting started. I want to thank every single one of you, our listeners, our followers, and especially our members. Your support is the reason this show exists. This platform was built for people like you, people who still believe in truth, courage, and in having the hard conversations that matter.